Welcome to another gorgeous day on planet Earth and another day of dose of Did You Know? We're inspiring, intriguing, unique. Yes, that's you, Mike. Individuals come to talk about love and life and how it brought them to where they are today. I'm your host, Danny Rocco, and with me is Mr. Mike. Mike, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Glad to be here. I love how you do the intro. It's stellar because it is another beautiful day on the planet. So
it is, even though this morning I have to tell you, so you're way out across the country from me. You're in the Seattle area, or really, right?
Is that right? Yeah, we're north of Seattle, but we are in the Seattle area, the greater Puget Sound. Yeah.
I had a lot of blonde moments apparently where I'm like, wait, was it in Seattle where we have coffee? I had to do a little check with myself. But it was rainy and dark here in New Hampshire. And it was one of those days where you wake up and you're like, is it the middle of the night? Is it the morning? I feel like what's going on? But now the sun is bright. I'm alive. I went for my run and here we are.
Yeah.
Voila.
Yeah.
But before we get down and dirty and we start talking, tell the world a little bit about who Mike is.
Oh, gosh. Who is Mike? Well, I'm one of those server guys. I guess that's probably the best way to describe myself. It served world's greatest Navy, 3 generations of sailors in my family, and it just made sense. Top Gun came out, and I said, I'm Tom Cruise. I'm going to date Kelly McGillis, and I'm going to fly your cool jets. And the Navy had a different plan for me, but my experience in the Navy was amazing. Part of a great team, community, and
So no jets for you?
Say again?
No jets. No, did you get to wear the sunglasses?
No, I might have a pair of the sunglasses, and I definitely want a pair of the flight boots. But Navy had other plans for me. So it was a great experience. Got out, and then I kind of got out in the startup business. Had some startups that did really well. Had some startups that did absolutely miserable. And then I got back into the philanthropic work and wrote a couple books that did extremely well, all in the veteran space, all about strengthening the family and why our veterans are truly America's greatest asset. And so today, that's really what we work on. We work on combat injury, moral injury, overcoming that. And we work on helping guys identify who they want to be after that uniform comes off.
I love that because I happen to know one of the men that have worked with you. That is how we kind of connected. Mm-hmm. And when you hear him talk, there's some people that hold places in my heart. When you meet them and you're just like, oh, yes, he was kind of my tour guide in Seattle, forced tour guide. Yeah. But we became very close. And to see how he talks and hear his transformation of who he was or wasn't and that whole confusion inside him, it's kind of like he was the, how do I want to say this? Exactly what you do, right? You can say what you do. He was a product. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
He was the product of kind of where your heart has led you to be. But I got to go back just a little bit. When you said you got out and you had all these startups and, I always feel like when you have something for a long period of time and it's who you are, and then you don't do it anymore for whatever reason that is, you kind of go through this learning phase of who the new you is, right? But you're older now. And so there's this piece of society that says, shouldn't you know who you are and what you want? And so you try these things, then you're like, that's a little bit of it, but it's not it. And there's this sense of maybe doubt that overcomes you, or your ego takes over, that you should be further along in the process of knowing where you are. So possibly you get stuck, or you kind of push through that part of it. So how did you push through that? Or maybe you didn't feel that way at all. Maybe I'm just projecting my own story onto you.
Yeah, no. So it's a great question because, if you look at the stats, and I know some people, nerd out on stats, but if you really look at the stats before COVID, like 73% of the workforce was disenfranchised. They weren't satisfied, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, which leaves leaves less than a little over 20% that are actually excited about what they do. And so it's not uncommon, right, for people inside the military or those who get out, or even those who have never been in uniform, to experience that seeking, right? That like, who am I? Like, who do I want to be? Right? Like, what does that mean to be me? And what I think what it stems from is, if you look at our childhood, we pretend a lot, right? We're like, man, I'm going to be a fireman. I'm going to be a policeman. I'm going to be, whoever. I'm going to be this person. It's going to be amazing. And then there's people in our lives that sometimes either build that up or tear it down. And the majority of humans tear other people down. They don't build them up. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is then you begin to suppress that little inside voice that you have inside of you that says, man, you know what? This is who you should be. This is your sphere. This is what you're going to do in life. This is going to be amazing. And we suppress that. And then we get to midlife and we're like, we spend the rest of that time trying to unpack all that damage and that garbage. And so when I got out of the service, the military was great. They said, Mike, this is who you are, right? This is your mission. This is your purpose. This is your identity. All that was figured out for me. So as an 18-year-old going into the service, I didn't have to really think about it. I had an idea. I wanted to be Tom Cruise. I wanted to fly cool jets, right? Navy said, well, this is our plan for you. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I have an identity. I know my purpose. I know what I'm going to do. When I got out, I struggled. So people sometimes think, Mike, you got it all figured out. Well, yeah, but the other part of that story, the rest of the story is I had 14 jobs trying to figure it out. Right. So I was bouncing around, seeking, looking, trying to figure out what aligns and who am I? And it was only because I had great mentors in my life that I finally just kind of slowed down enough. And when I wrote that first book in 2006, my best friend was deployed to Afghanistan, and we interviewed a ton of couples. And we put this book together, and I remember my publisher saying, okay, well, you got to get endorsements, right? And I'm like, okay, great. So let's go get endorsements. Well, who do you want? And I was like, well, I want General Tommy Franks. He was a commander-in-chief of U.S. Central Command, this big guy. And I'm like, that is amazing. Okay, now go get it. Okay. All right. And that is kind of what catapulted me into the whole philanthropic work, is this, interesting. If I want something, I just need to go get it. Right.
What a simple statement, Mike. If I want something, I'm just going to go and get it. And I actually had almost those exact same words spoken to me from a really great guy that I met in Nashville. And he's like, if I want something, I'm just going to go and get it. I'm just going to go ask for it.
Yeah.
And and so that's like twice within the last 3 weeks of such a simplistic way of thinking. It's not that difficult, but at the same time, for majority of people, it is the most fearful, scariest statement that you could say to them. Because you must get that sometimes where you can say something like that and people are like that. Yeah. That's the face they get. Maybe they don't give you that face, but they're like, you gotta be flipping kidding me. No way.
It's because of the conversation we have in our head. Like, so we have opportunity to either project, okay. It's really perspective. Okay, I'll give you a great example. So, those people who are faith followers, the Bible, great story, right? David and Goliath. I think everybody in the world, even if they're not, faith followers or God believers, they probably know that story of David and Goliath. And really, if you look at that story, it's really about perspective, right? So David comes in and, he's not a warrior by trade, but King Saul had already determined that, they were going to lose. Right. And David came in and said, man, I've already kicked the tail of this, of the lion. I've already kicked the tail of the bear. This guy, he doesn't stand a chance. Saul looked at that target as being huge, massive, overwhelming, going to destroy me. And David looked at that target and said, there's no way I can miss. Right. And so that's perspective, right? And so when we go into this, people ask me often, Mike, it doesn't seem like you have fear. Well, I have fear all the time. But the other side of fear isn't faith. The other side of fear is courage. Mm-hmm. And so courage is something that takes people time to develop. It's like, man, I'm afraid of rejection. Well, so am I. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, right? So we're working on this massive project that we can't really say much about that's happening here in October that we've been leaking a little bit about. But it's got some.
I hate secrets. Why do you do that? I'm going to be like, are you kidding me? Every day I'm going to be like, Mike, so what's the secret? Or I'll go around the corner and be like, hey, Joe, you know what's happening? Because I'm heading out there.
Sure, I tell Joe he can't leak anything. But it's got all these major powerhouse players part of it. And people are like, how did you get them? And I said, I just called them. Mm. And could they have said no? 100%. Could they have said, boy, this is a horrible idea? Sure, they could have, right? But what I realized through life is what other people think, say, and do related to me doesn't define me. So that's where people really have to do the work, Danny, is they have to really dig deep and say, who do I want to be and who am I? And I think there's never been a greater time than now, because I believe like COVID ripped everything, all the distractions away, like everything, like, the soccer and the basketball and you name it, right? Like everybody was maxed, like going amazing, 1,000,000 miles an hour. And all of a sudden all that stopped and people are standing in front of that mirror naked and going, who am I? And this, I believe, is a huge opportunity for people to say, you know what? I need to do the work and figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, then I need to get help. And you know what? There is no harm in getting help. There is power in mentorship.
Well, why do we think this? Okay, so I want your opinion on this. I have my own opinion is about asking for help. Because let's say you always want to surround yourself with people that know more than you. Why? Yeah. Because they're going to help you in some capacity. They're going to give you a different perspective. They're going to give you different thoughts. They're going to give you the strength when you don't have the strength. And isn't that like, I listen to my son, like I'm getting all like, my veins are popping. I'm getting so excited about this. Like when I listen to my son talk about his military career and things like that, that's what it was all about. It was about like, looking to those that are above, listening to those that are above. So where's the breakdown from that same concept into when we get out? I'm just going to talk about veterans now, but you can talk about it with anything in life where we get out and it's all of a sudden something weak. To surround yourself with people that are, maybe more educated than you or have more experience than you in something. Why?
Yeah. Well, and again, the military is unique, right? In some ways, because fewer than 7% of our population has served in uniform, right? So you got 2.1 million people on active duty presently. So it's a small part of the population that experiences that whole degree of mentorship, which is, in order for me to advance, I need to learn from those who have gone before me. Corporate America, civilian world is totally different. It's you and I are always in competition with each other. Like it's a scarce mentality in corporate, which means that I can't really let Danny get too close because if I let her get too close, she might steal my idea. And if she steals my idea, then she advances and I don't.
Okay. And that concept I never understood. Even when I ran my business, my brother would have that. My brother's a genius in his business. Okay. Like he was a top 10 champion. He lived at the Olympic Training Center. He competed around the whole world for our country in gymnastics. He did and can go anywhere and get a job anyway. He's just brilliant. He's coaching some of the upcoming Olympians right now. Right. So he's just this genius. And when we worked together, he would always have that mentality. And I said, Louis, nobody can be you. They can copy if I filmed something and put it on Facebook or something, I'm like, they can do exactly what you're doing, but guess what? They're not you, and it's going to drop right there. It's going to stop. They're only going to go so far. Like nobody can be me. They can do exactly what I do, call it the exact same thing, but it's never going to be Danny Rocco. It's never going to be Mike. It's never going to be Travis and Jim and Brian and Michelle that are watching here. So why do we do that to ourselves? Like now I've even gone another layer into my question originally too.
Well, I'm just going to call it as I see it. It has everything to do with education and mentorship. So and the influences that we have in our life. So, if everybody realizes that, your fingerprint is pretty unique, not pretty unique, it is unique. Like there's only one fingerprint that's attached to one person, right? That's you. Now, can somebody maybe do, and I've always had this philosophy, is if somebody can do it better than me, then good, go do it better.
Right.
Right? Because perhaps maybe that means I need to do a mission shift. Okay, fine. Okay, I'm going to influence my sphere, however I'm going to influence my sphere. But that's because I'm secure in who I am. And so what happens in corporate and, through our education system is oftentimes we're always competing. Think about sports, right? Always competing. Like even in team sports, we're still competing to hold our spot. We're still competing to get the most goals or the greatest touchdowns or you name it, right? And then we get into corporate and it's like, well, there's only so many people that can advance. Well, I got to compete again. And so we develop this competition mentality, which I love competition, 100%. I am a free market guy. I love competition. I believe that the cream should rise to the top. And what that reveals is, those who rise to the top in a certain area, you found your sweet spot. Okay. If you don't rise to the top, then start to evaluate, wait a second, what is my sweet spot? What am I really good at? Yeah, but I love this. Well, maybe you do love it, but maybe you're not great at it, right? Like I love soccer, but there are much better players than me at soccer, right?
Yeah.
So I love that sport. I've played that sport for 30 years. Am I the best player? No way. Have I ever played professional? Not a chance, right? I love it, but I also know that that's not where I'm to influence, right? That's an outlet for me. So people sometimes confuse that, okay? Meaning, yeah, but I love this, so this must be what I need to do. Well, no, maybe not. See, what you need to do is figure out, who are you? Like, what does it mean to be you? And most people cannot answer that question. I'll give you an example. I get guys that come to me all the time when they're getting out and they say, Mike, I've got my LinkedIn profile nailed. I've got my resume nailed. I've got all this stuff. I've got my PMP. I've got a master's. And I'm like, that is awesome. And they're like, and now I need to get a job. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. So who do you want to be? And that's the response. What do you mean? I'm like, well, what does it mean to be you? Like if you were to have your best year yet, personally and professionally, what does that look like for you? And they struggle, but they're not the only ones. If you look at corporate America and you get high-powered execs that get into these big interviews, oftentimes the HR people are asking, well, tell me your top 3 goals. So they'll ask them, do you have goals? And they're like, oh yeah, totally. I've got goals. They go, great. What are your top 3 goals? I want to be a better dad. They start, they haven't done the work. And so it's not uncommon that people struggle with that. So that's why when you look at data and it says 73% of people are disenfranchised in their work, it's because they've not done the right work. They've worked, no question. They just haven't done the right work to answer that question, who do you want to be? And what does your best year look like personally and professionally?
Why do you think that is? Do you think that our egos kind of stop us from absorbing or stop us from actually truly seeing who we are? Because sometimes it's a little ugly in there and you have to look at the ugly part, right? To figure out what you want to be. Because I had that. I was like writing in my group, like this blog, and I'm thinking, when you have those moments, you see what you want to be. Like emotionally, I'm such a visual kind of like feeler. So it's like, how do I want to feel in my life on a day to day? And what is it that's stopping me, right? What do I tell myself, or what are those habits, those emotional habits or thoughts that come? And then you feel them. You can actually, when you let that ego down and be like, crap, I don't want to be vulnerable. Like, your ego stops you from being vulnerable. But if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you know what that feeling that comes next to that is? It is the most like amazing feeling, like you can't even imagine when you go through that. But so that's like on an emotional side of things, not necessarily a career side of things, but I think the concept's the same thing. And so do you think that we've trained our egos to protect us so much, it stops us from seeing what's not there?
Well, sure. And half the time we don't know to even do it, right? We just we don't know because we haven't been around people who have always challenged us. And that's, society teaches perfection. right? So think about that. Everything that we see is perfection, excellent
so hard.
perfection, right? Like everybody looks pretty. Everybody has an amazing, life on social media. Everybody's perfect. And then people begin to self-doubt, right? Like, man, I can't be that. I don't know who I am. I've got to strive to be that. When in fact, what we need to really be committed to is learning, right? So when we shift the gear and go, listen, I'm committed to learning over perfection, okay? Or performance even. Okay, so that's another one is people are always wanting to perform. Okay, and I'm saying, great, performance is great, but be committed to learning. So if you trip and fall while you're performing, it's okay. But we're so concerned about people judging us or what other people are saying that oftentimes we don't want to go deep because we're afraid that we don't know who we are. And that's why I use that visual of standing in front of the mirror naked, where we're totally exposed. And none of us want to be totally exposed. But there's true comfort when you're like, man, I'm totally exposed and I feel totally comfortable with who I am. Right. That takes a lot of work and confidence. Remember, it's not, people stop because of fear. Okay. And what I'm saying is you'll have the fear. Okay. The opposite, what pushes through fear isn't so much faith. Faith is very important, but it's courage. I'm going to do it anyway. So in the Navy, we have our code, right? Honor, courage, and commitment. And we talk about how we really need to flip that, which is start with commitment. Because when you commit, honor and courage show up. So commit doesn't mean I'm going to give myself an off-ramp. Commit is commit. Like, right. I'm committed.
Just push through. You have to push through to that other side.
I got to go. Mission fail is not an option, right? So if I'm committed, doesn't mean I'm not going to face all these other things, right? Discouragement, dissatisfaction, fear, disappointment. Yeah, I'll face all that. Yep. So I've got an option. Am I committed or was I just semi-committed?
Yeah. You just gave some... I'm a little speechless because I'm thinking of all these conversations that I've had. And then I'm like, I hope that they're listening. I mean, I'm listening and learning, right? And I hope they're applying. But I love that whole part about courage. It really is. It takes a courageous act to say, no matter how scared I am or how much protection I feel I need to give myself, I'm just going to like, whoop, and go there.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to give you a short story. So we were on this amazing road trip. It was like the Griswold summer vacation road trip. And we came to this, we found out from the locals that there was a swimming hole in Utah that only the locals really knew about. And so we did the hike up there and it was amazing. It had this waterfall and everything else. And so, my 14-year-old was like, Dad, we need to jump off the waterfall. And it's probably about 12 feet up, right? And, there's people jumping off it all the time. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I really do not want to jump off this waterfall. She's like, come on, Dad, we got to do it. We got to do it. And so finally I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to do it. And now, see, I don't have a fear of heights. I have a fear of falling. Okay. So I can climb, but I'm always thinking there's that voice in my back of the head saying, dude, you can't fly. Right. So that makes my grip even tighter. Right? So we get up there and I'm telling myself this as I'm climbing up this thing, like I'm going to get up there and I'm just going to run right off. I'm not even going to think about it. Okay. Because if I think about it, I'll be like that 50-year-old guy up there, like, oh man, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Right. I'm going to all my negative self-talk, because self-talk is critical. Right. And so I battle it. And so we get up there and it's my turn. And I just casually, like I knew what I was doing. It was just, I walked right off that waterfall and jumped right in. Like it was no big deal. Now, the whole time, what people don't know is the voices that I was fighting in my head, which is, dude, I can't believe you do this. What if you land wrong? What if you do this? Right? I mean, all this stuff, right? Like, what if you don't hit the deep end and hit the 4-foot end? I mean, all this stuff. You just have to do it. But I had committed to my daughter that I was going to jump. So that's the courage piece, is when you commit to something, then it's like, okay, well, what I'm going to, if I'm committed, I got to do it.
Yeah. And during that time when we're rebuilding, like we're always evolving, we're always becoming more courageous, we're always becoming, more of a lover, whatever it is that we're doing. that's when that mentorship or people like you and programs like you or whoever it is, right? You just have that person that says that kind of, you have to commit to them because you're not strong enough in some sort to commit to yourself. This is why isolation doesn't work, right? This is why we're made to be with people, because there are times in our life that we need that other person to remind us, like your daughter. You committed to your daughter. Now, maybe if your daughter wasn't there, it would have been a different story. You know, you've been shoving down on your bum the way you came out. Who knows? But that commitment to your daughter, like you said, kind of held you accountable that you were going to. And then once you do it, you've practiced that muscle a little bit more.
Yeah, you rewire the brain at that point. Yeah, you rewire the brain. I tell folks this all the time that enroll in our courses, our masterminds, things along that line. I say, listen, I will never leave you. It's your option, right? I don't make people sign contracts. You enroll in our courses. If you go through it, listen, you're committing to you. Now I'll show up. And if you leave, it's entirely up to you. But understand, I'm not going to quit on you because my goal is to help you achieve and become really your best self.
Right.
And that's what people need to do, is they need to realize that mentorship works as long as you don't quit on yourself. So, and people do quit on themselves a lot. And I did. Listen, I didn't have it worked out. And, I just had great mentors, but I was willing to, not always, but I was willing to listen. And to this day, I still have I've got a board. I've got 3 people that mentor me. I've got, because I'm always learning, but I'm committed to learning and I'm committed to growth. And that's what I encourage people to be committed to, is learn and grow. Every day you can learn and grow. Figure out how you learn and grow every day.
Yeah. Living proactive. Some days are better than others.
Oh, totally.
but just live in that proactive sense of mind, and you're going to be moving forward. Yeah. Mike, you have given so much value. I do have to quote one of the things that you say is, and what you help with, and what you're kind of all about, is how to profit from your transition, which is a huge difference. It's kind of like how to not struggle through transition. It's always this kind of negative undertone, but you really talk about taking that transition and profiting from it. And I just love that mindset. It just kind of encapsulated you to me. So I wanted to get that out there. But before I let you go, you have to answer the last question. In this moment right now, Mike, what does love mean to you?
Yeah, what does love mean to me? So in this moment right now, what love means to me is being a listening ear. I think, people struggle with that question, what is love? And it's been, it's been bastardized, if I can use that term a little bit. But love is really, it's being quick to listen, slow to speak. I believe that's love, and we need to do that in our families. We need to do that with our friends. And that is just that is an act of love when you do that, because people are hurting and people want to know that people care. And when people know how much you care, they begin to care more. Right. So yeah, that's what love is to me.
And I love it, because everyone's answer always, is a reflection of where their heart is at the moment, right? What is coming onto their heart to speak on in this conversation that we have during the Dose of Did You Know? And so I love to say, I've never seen it be something totally off base. And I'm like, something went wonky here, you know? So makes perfect sense to me why you mean that. There's so many people talking right now on the comments that I'm going to have to go back because this was, you gave so much value, so much content. People follow him, follow his work. It is valuable. I've seen the other side of the people that you have mentored, Mike. And like I said, they hold such a place in my heart, which gives a bigger place for you in my heart, because I see what you have done for them. So
yeah, we're truly honored.
Thank you for all of that. And to everybody else out there that is watching, remember, as always, love hard, love pure, and love proactive. Next time, take care. Bye-bye.